All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hello.
Oh, should I sit here? Or?
Yeah, go ahead. I have to pace, so.
Okay, go for it. I don't want them to be able to see.
So where?
I can turn it around.
I mean, I can just stand back here so they can see me, at least for now. It has been a while since I stood in front of you. A long while. Hello. So I'm Rebecca. I don't know if you all know me, but I'm one of the co-founders of Alchemy. And so it is near and dear to my heart. I appreciate everybody, being here and being online to talk about the future of this thing. I want to go over a few things and give you guys a little bit of background before we get started. So first off, I want to thank every single person who has been involved in this organization for the last 18 years, because it took all of us. And we've had our ups and downs, but you guys have kept this thing going for 18 years, and that's pretty awesome. So thank you to everybody who has put in the time and energy, because there's been a bunch of you, and that's pretty awesome. When we started the thing, I certainly wouldn't have ever thought we would have been here 18 years in the future. So, so thank you. I appreciate it, personally. I want to remind everybody that while there's some stuff that's been going on, and everything feels a little bit scary to the people that are deeply involved in this, there are lots and lots and lots of people in our community who have absolutely no idea about any of the trouble in leadership. You've got an entire giant burn that I'm sure most of you saw last year. It was a mile long, full of theme camps, full of participants who are still very, very excited and very thrilled to be there. And so let's not forget, when we're talking about what we want to do with the future of this thing, that just because we feel some sort of way about it in the leadership arena doesn't mean that's what all the participants feel. So it's important that if there are still people who want to make this go, that we look to the good as well as the stuff that's been rough, and keep that in mind as we move forward. I've looked at a lot of stuff over the last several weeks. This is not insurmountable, you guys. It's really not. It's important to remember that the people in leadership do this in what we consider to be the burn bubble. You guys are inside the burn bubble, or you're outside the burn bubble, and the people that are participants are inside. And so your job has been to protect the participants so that they can have their fun, but that means that you're dealing with all of the, making of the hot dogs and sausages, right? And sometimes that's not pretty. But the people inside that bubble, they don't see all of that. So we need to fix the stuff that's outside of the bubble. That's what we need to focus on, and I think that that's totally doable. So if we all work together and have some patience and get some more people involved, I think that there's a way forward. Something else I want to remind everybody as we get into this, please keep in mind that FAI is a business. It's a corporation, and it's necessary for legal reasons, primarily because having a business protects everybody that's involved. Having FAI provides a wall, it provides a barrier between anybody. If they want to sue the org, they can't sue any of you personally if you're on the board or you're one of the event leads or something like that. That's why we have FAI. It provides a layer of protection for everybody that's volunteering. So having a corporation means that we have to treat it like a business. And so sometimes that's going to mean legal things and contracts and things that are not necessarily fun to deal with. But we have to, you guys. That's one of the things that we have to do, and we have to do it well in order to keep this corporation part running. And so some of the things that I've run into is that we're not doing a great job with keeping the corporation itself running. But that's also relatively easy to fix. I think some of this is just a matter of not understanding. We can work on that. But that's why we have FAI, so just so you know. I want to attempt to give everybody a little bit of an update or sort of a status on where things are. Please keep in mind, I am not involved. I have pieced together things by talking to various people that are involved or have recently been involved. Currently, there are 3 remaining board members, 2 of which are trying desperately to get off the board as soon as possible, but there are things we have to hand off, and and whatnot in order for that to happen. And then we have 3 appointed board members who are our event leads currently. All of those people are voting members currently. So that's the status of the board. I know that there was a lot of misunderstanding about who was left, and people kept saying there's only 1 board member. That's not true. There are currently 6 voting members of the board, okay? So I know that there are some changes that are going to be made, and some people want to leave, and some new people have agreed to step in and things like that. But I wanted you to know where it stands. Let me finish, and then I will let everybody talk, okay? I don't want to go into it. So the event leads, and I think Anna and, I don't know, who else on the board? Anna, Amanda, and Butters, that's right, are the 3 elected board members that are still around. But I know that Butters and Anna they're out. Like, as soon as they can get out, they're out. So, but, there have to be people to step into their shoes. So that's what we're working on. I want to set a few ground rules, and then, I don't want to control too much how this goes, because the whole idea is to hear from you guys about, what your thoughts and stuff are. But I don't want this to turn into a screaming fest. I don't want to be the person that you guys toss your anger at because you're mad at somebody else that's been involved. The whole idea with this is we're here to try to see if we can move forward. And so I would love to hear ideas and stuff to potentially do that, but I want to give you a caveat. I currently hold no power in this organization. My job right now is I wanted to hear from the community. I wanted to hear what you guys had to say, what you're thinking, where you are. My plan is to go to the people who are currently involved and to see if we can figure out some way, taking what the community's input is, and to move this thing forward. But please don't think that just because you give an idea to me today, that means I can turn around and implement that idea. I cannot. I can potentially help things roll in the future, but right now, we're just talking, okay? So please be patient with me, and I will be patient with you, and I want everybody to be heard. Right now, the idea is to give everybody about 4 minutes. There's not too many people, so we can extend that or reduce it based on how time goes. Does that sound fair to everybody? Okay, so that's all I have to say. I'm gonna mostly just moderate this. I also am willing to answer any questions. I know a lot about the bylaws and things like that, so if you have questions about at least basically how things sort of run, I can give at least a little background to that. Who wants to go first? Jen, did you have your hand up?
I was wondering what would happen if all the board members
So the question is, what would happen if all the current board members just quit? All right, so I'm a lawyer. I don't know if you guys know. So basically what that would do would make the org sort of go into like a stasis. And so what would need to happen is it wouldn't be if, somebody would need to go and file a motion with the court to sort of become the temporary holder. And then that person would be able to appoint new temporary board members in order to do the dissolution process, to close down the org, or to continue it if that's the way that people wanted. It wouldn't just disappear is the short answer. It wouldn't be that hard to go to a court and petition to be the guardian of the thing, which I honestly would probably go do immediately if I heard that was what was going on. And then I would beg you people to help me figure out what to do from there. But it's not the end of the world if they all rage quit. It would cause some problems. Like, the board currently has access to everything to do with everything, so the money and all of that kind of stuff, we would need to try to figure out how to get that handed off, and hopefully wouldn't have to have any additional legal things involved to get access. But it wouldn't be the end of the world by any means. Next. Go ahead, Tom. We are a Georgia nonprofit, and so not a federal level nonprofit. The difference is Georgia nonprofits are considered charitable organizations, but there's no tax exemption. We are not qualified to be a federal nonprofit. And honestly, we're not organized enough to be a federal nonprofit because doing so requires a lot more reporting. And if you don't keep up with that paperwork, you can get fined to all hell. And that could bankrupt the org if we didn't do a great job. So right now, that's not really a great thing for us to consider doing. I mean, they're basically almost the same thing, except that there's some protections in place as a nonprofit that dictate that people can't just take off with the money. Like in the Georgia Code, there are rules about how you need to dissolve a Georgia nonprofit, whereas with an LLC, somebody owns the company, right? With a nonprofit, nobody owns the company, right? It's owned by the community. And so that's why it was set up as a nonprofit, because that way nobody has to have like ownership interest in the company, whereas with an LLC, there has to be an owner, like somebody's name has to be attached to it. Let me make sure I heard your question correctly. Is there a way to change things around so we don't need as many people? So there are ways to do anything we want. That's the short answer. Whoever is on the board can make a resolution to organize this thing any way that they want to. So they can set any kind of rules that they want. You know, they can dictate how they're going to do meetings and all of that kind of stuff. All of that stuff is stuff that the board has the ability to decide and change. But you have to have people that are active and voting for that. So that's a really fun question. The question is, how many people on the board do we have to have in order to do business? So it's an interesting question right now because of people not being around, and technically speaking, right now, because we have 6 voting board members, you need 4 for quorum because it's half the number plus 1. So you need 4 people right now on the current board of directors to vote on, or to be present for the vote on anything at all. Otherwise, the board can't do business. I don't know that we have 4 board members that are present enough to do business right now, which is obviously a problem. That's why we need people on the board who are going to be active and present to make things happen. So I don't know. I have made some, the question is about the people that are on the board currently and why they're there. Is that right? Like there's some appointed people and some elected people, right?
More of clarification. Right now we have producers,
Right.
like riding between the event committee and the board.
Yep.
But that seems to not have been by design originally.
Okay, it's not. So the question is, and I'm going to summarize, but I'll circle back to you, okay? So the question is, why do we have 3 elected board members and 3 appointed board members? So the people that are on the event lead team have been appointed as board members, and the reason they were appointed as board members, I wasn't there for that, so I don't really know. But that's, completely under, like, the bylaws allow for that. There are some rules around who can be appointed and for how long, but, the board can choose to appoint people for up to 12 months at a time and give them whatever level of voting the board wants to. Okay, I can only hear about half of what you're saying, so speak up.
What I was saying was, I think it's probably in the better interest for the EC to have a representation on the board,
Right.
and for that overlap to be maintained. Since it sounds like historically that's not the case.
I can tell you how it was set up historically. I can also tell you it's not being run like that now. Okay. So originally, and under Georgia law, this is how it's supposed to be done. Okay, so you have your board of directors, and then they can choose to have as many executive committees as they want to have. Originally, the event lead team was set up as an executive committee. If you set it up correctly, you're supposed to have 2 board members that sit on that committee, And then that committee, like that's basically the liaison. You can have them come to the board meetings and report and stuff like that. But in order for it to be legal and for the event lead committee to be able to act with the authority of the board, so making contracts and things like that, you have to have 2 board members that sit on that committee. The board basically just acts as oversight. Like they basically farm out all of the executive stuff to other people, right? The committee situation has kind of gone off the rails from what I can see. I don't think it's being run like that at all now. I'm not entirely sure what the situation is about between the board and the event lead team. I have no idea. I'm not sure how it got the way that it is, but it used to be that the representation went both ways. So you had board members that paid attention in the executive committees, and the executive committees had people that would come to the board meetings to report. That was the design. Yeah, I mean, it kind of gets a little crazy when you have your event people also as voting members of the board.
I just thought it might be a good idea to continue to have representation from the EC because if there is oversight, it's good to have their voice.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the issues that I've seen is it really feels like, and I don't want to speak out of turn about this because, again, I haven't been involved, but it really feels like there's a big disconnect between the board and the people that are making things go. And so obviously that's a thing that's going to need to be addressed. And it seems like that disconnect is kind of wide. So there's communication issues, there's responsiveness issues, there's issues with dealing with the money and when the event lead team is getting the money and all kinds of stuff. And so there's some stuff that needs to be cleaned up there. But definitely, especially right now, you're not wrong. There does need to be some representation and some back and forth between the people running the event and the board, for sure. And I don't see that happening the way it should right now. Next. You guys are way too quiet for a bunch of people raging.
This is kind of a subject change. Oh, Samantha, you go first.
Why does the board have to be separate from the EC, and what are the legal processes and pros and cons behind that?
So it doesn't, is the short answer. Transformus, for a really, really long time, had their board of directors operating their event. The reason that we split it out was because we used to not have just one burn. And so because we had 2 burns and also an art fundraiser and sometimes additional events, we had several different committees. And so you needed somebody that was sort of the overall, one second, sort of the overall like people that were making sure all of those different committees were going. That was the purpose of having a board, because like it was too much to have the same event people doing every single one of those events, as you well know. There are pros and cons to running it both ways, but it is possible to have the board be the event lead team, legally. Did you have a follow-up? All right.
So there was a question from online just requesting that you repeat Sam's question.
Samantha's question was, is it possible to have the event lead team be the board and have the board be the event lead team? And is there any legal reasons to do or not do that? Basically, anything is possible. All right. There's another question back there.
Just kind of bouncing off of Samantha's question, I think that the only other possible hiccup I could see about having the board be the EC and the EC be the board at the same time is reaching quorum. Because our event committee is so large, to reach quorum would mean having at least half plus one of the event committee present to even be able to vote on anything.
So the comment is, if the event lead team was also the board, then there would be questions about reaching quorum, because the current setup, there's a lot of people involved at the event level. So, I mean, getting quorum if you've got 50 people involved would be a lot. That's true.
There's a request that people just who want to ask a question just come to the mic.
That's also fine. If there's a request from the online people that people with questions come up here and talk into the mic so they can hear you. All right.
I think the other side of the mic.
Okay.
Around, the speaker will be.
Whatever. Okay, hold on, online people. We're going to try to set up another mic. any other questions while we're doing this? Or comments or concerns? Dusty.
So just when we set up the event committee, it was 5 people.
Do you want to come up and speak? Come here. Come here.
So, my name's Dusty. I was actually on the FAI board that split the LLC and created FAI. When we did this and we created the event committee, we moved away from a 3-person or 2-person event lead team, and we split out and we created the departments, and it was 5 people, like art, safety,
I remember yesterday too. So art, safety, ops, and I can't remember
info.
info.
Yeah.
And then me.
And then the event lead. So there weren't 50 people, there were 5, and then the subcommittees and team leads under that were reporting to their person on the event committee. And so everybody didn't have a vote. It was the 5 people at the Thai place at 3 in the morning making the decisions. So that would be easier to make a quorum than trying to get 50 people together at one time.
I will definitely say that you guys have managed to make this thing way, way more complicated than it used to be. So one of the things that I would suggest that we consider moving forward, and I don't know what this would look like necessarily, but if there are any ways that we can reduce, like simplify all of this a lot, I think that that might actually go a long way to helping people get a little bit less burned out and feel a little less overwhelmed. There's a lot going on. Go ahead, Samantha. Say your thing in the mic.
Okay.
It's not on. Oh, weird.
Keep going.
Talk louder. Oh, it's on the other side. Talk louder.
Do it
Okay.
again.
Things have gotten really complex, but I do also think it's important to remember that, like, when we started creating new departments and new roles, the reason that we started doing that was because everything that, like, now has a name has always had work attached to it. Whether or not we give it a name and give it a specific role, that work is being done somewhere by someone, and when we don't name it, it just falls into the person who happens to be in charge at that moment's lap, in a way when they are unexpected and like unprepared. So it's one thing to tailor things down and like streamline the structure, but if we don't account for that work within whatever new structure is formed, we're just gonna end up in the same spot that we're in, burning people out, and nobody's gonna know why.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's, I think we really, I don't think that we're going to get into it deeply today, but I would like to get into it eventually with anybody who actually cares. That we actually sit down with how all of this stuff is organized and look at what the tasks are on a given year and, figure out what of those tasks need to remain and what stuff we might want to ask the community to start taking over for itself. If anything, there may not be anything we want the community to take over for itself, but it just feels to me like there's been a lot of org creep. And if we don't have enough people to do the things, then we don't have enough people to do the things. So then we have to do fewer things. So, that's kind of where we stand right now from the way I see it. Unless we get a ton more people involved and a ton of people who are willing to train those people and support them, then we've got to reduce how many things we're trying to do until we can get back on our feet and get stable.
Can I comment on that? Yeah, so I was going to say something kind of similar to that. I think these administrative problems are things that absolutely need to be solved. But I'm very confident that all of that sort of stuff we're going to be able to fix. It just requires, attention from the right people. Yeah. W- I don't know. Can you hear me? Check, 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 check. Check, check. Here. DL. Check. 1, 2. Check, check. Check, check. 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 Check.
We can hear you.
You can hear me now?
We sure can.
Awesome. All right, sorry about that. I didn't realize Teams limited me to an hour. But yeah, so what I was saying is I have confidence that we're going to be able to deal with the administrative issues that we've been talking about. There's a lot of them, and I think it's going to require a lot of work and attention. But what I'm not as confident about is I've stepped away from Alchemy for the last couple years, and it's a lot of it has been what I perceive as kind of like a cultural drift. And there have been some things across the burn, but what has really concerned me recently is within leadership. And it's not any particular person or anything. I'm not going to give any names, and I've definitely seen this across both the board of directors, some of the prior board of directors members, and also the event committee, and even people who are only involved tangentially. And the thing is, when I first came out to a burn, and I had no idea what it was, I thought it was the coolest thing ever that it was so egalitarian. Everything was done by the attendees, and if you wanted to do something, you can do it, and that's still the case in a lot of ways. But I agree with what Rebecca has said about sort of organizational overreach. I feel like FAI and the org they've been doing a lot of things that I don't feel like it is really their place to be doing. At least, this is only my take, but I feel like FAI, their job is to facilitate the burn for everyone else. I like what Rebecca said about, protecting the burn bubble. And I've just seen a lot of mistrust between leadership and the rest of the community. Whenever I speak to people, I think a lot of the lack of transparency comes from there's this attitude of the population at large can't handle knowing about this stuff. Or, they're too immature for it. They're worried about people, posting nasty things on Facebook, which, yes, that does happen. But I don't think we can really, successfully run an organization like this if we don't have people that have, faith in the community at large. And there have been a lot of symptoms of this. I think one of the biggest one is definitely the tax situation. Just very worried about pushback and fallout. And that pushback and fallout, that's healthy. It was a fucked situation. And, yes, some people would probably be immature and nasty, but I think everyone had the right to know about it. And you've seen other examples of it. Some of the dismissals from the event team, I think, were handled improperly just because they were worried about, the drama that would follow from it. And I've definitely probably bitched to some of you about the Facebook page being approved posts only. I think that shows, a deep, fundamental, mistrust for our community at large. And I don't know, I just want to say that I think it's really important that, as we're making these changes and, trying to solve some of these problems, that we realize that, being... Oh. You guys can't hear me online?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I think. Well, some people are saying they can't hear me. Some people can. But yeah, I just think it's important to have faith in their community. I think there's always going to be some people with problematic behaviors, and the way to address that is not to silence them or to ostracize them. It's to teach them. And I don't know. I just want to approach solving these problems from that perspective.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I do want to speak on the moderation of our public-facing community Facebook page and why we turned on post-approval. And there's two reasons. One was utter abuse coming from community members on other community members and community towards people in leadership. And the other is legally, those pages are open and anyone can view them, law enforcement, all of those things. So there are things that we cannot say or have people saying on our public-facing community page. And whether we have those rules posted or not, those things still get said. People still try to post stuff talking about illegal things that they shouldn't be talking about in that way. We saw what happened to Transformis last year, and we don't want that to happen to us.
So I agree, those are real concerns, and definitely if it was open, we would need more people willing to moderate the page. But the two kind of response is that is first off, as far as I know, I looked. We are the only Burning Man group in North America that has those policies. And even if that is the case, and that is something we have to do, it is not being enforced evenly. I have never tried to post anything about drug use or illegal activity or personal harassment on the page. I have exclusively been trying to post things having to do with this recent conflict. I've been trying to post the recordings of the board of directors. I've been trying to post my own personal opinions on what's going on. And they aren't allowed through. And I get messages that they're having a committee meeting on whether or not I should be able to say these things every single time. And the fact is, there needs to be a place. If it's not Facebook, then it's not Facebook. That might be the solution. But there needs to be a place where the community at large can publicly and openly communicate with the people in charge. And there's not right now. And I think that leads to a lot of the disconnect.
You remember how you just said you wanted the community to handle more of their shit? Start one. Just saying. I have a Discord, by the way, that my kid has built for us that I should have online and announce to you guys either tonight or tomorrow, and he's put so much work into it, so we're really excited about that. It's not an
I would very much like to be. I would just say we cannot type in chat currently on the video. It's got it, like I can't put anything in, but I want to say Discord is a private community, and I think it's a great idea. I've been harping on this for a while. I've been talking to some people in the background. So, Ariel, let me just say, if your son needs some help, I currently moderate 2 Discords, both at over 10,000 people.
Cool. Go ahead, Samantha.
I have a question and like a statement. My question is like, I think I'm wondering if the pushback to posting the information about like what has been going on in the page is really coming from like the moderation team, or if it's coming from the board who doesn't want those things to be talked about. I don't know that we're going to get an answer to that, but that is a question that I have. But just as an observation, I think that like one thing that we have to change is that there is, not only is there no place for like public discussion about these types of things, but there is nowhere internally for leadership to discuss these types of things or bring these types of things up that is not heavily censored or like looked through. And the reason that all of this stuff blew up on Facebook is because there is no other channel for members of leadership to press for accountability. And after you have asked time and time again for conversations to happen and for things to like go, like to be done in like a baseline ethical manner and with a baseline level of respect for the work that people put into this, the only way that you have to get the board to do anything is to make people mad on Facebook about it, and that has to change.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I mean, there's, I can't speak for the board or any of the mediation or moderation that's happening in any of these spaces, but I think that what we can do is add it to the list of things that definitely do need to be addressed. I mean, I think that it's very obvious from anybody that's been watching this at all that the disconnect and sort of the miscommunications and lack of communication between the board and the people running the event, especially with regard to if there's some kind of issue going on, that's a big giant fail right now. So that's obviously, there's got to be better communication, and there's got to be, I think we need a therapist that is on call for the entire organization. But I honestly think that we need an HR department, and I'm not kidding about that. I think that moving forward, we've got to find a way to work on communication and finding a way, if there needs to be constructive feedback, how best to give that constructive feedback. Go ahead.
I really agree with that, and whoever is involved in the organization now, like if you want to look as a starting point, the board has absolutely, I have personally provided the board with quotes from different places, both to have like, we do need a therapist or a mediator, someone some third party to be handling this type of stuff. And we also need someone on call, someone with the professional skills who has a contract to handle conduct issues that are
Yes.
current and active, and where the person may actively be like in an unsafe situation. Like all of those things need to be outsourced, and we can afford to outsource them. So like we need to do that.
I definitely agree the conduct committee needs to be wholly separate from any other committee and, you know, even the board. Like, it needs to be completely separate. And we have plenty of other burns to model a new type of conduct committee from, you guys. There's no reason to recreate the wheel with this. There are many other burns that have completely successful conduct committees, you know, from people that are hired to do it to volunteers that are doing it, but they're across the board, they're successful. There's no reason why at 18 years in we haven't been able to conquer this conduct committee issue. It's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. It's so important.
I just want to say I'm aware that chat in the Teams meeting is disabled. I'm working on it.
I just also want to state that as far as different Southeast regionals and their Facebook pages, many of them have moved to the post-approval place, specifically after what transpired within Transform Us last year. So both To the Moon and Ignite also have like post-approval turned on. You have to submit the post. Yes. Okay. At least they do for me.
Anybody else? Questions, comments, concerns? So, one of the big things that we're facing is we have to have more people involved, and we have to find a way to actually create a leadership structure, like a leadership pipeline, so that people, we have to start when people jump on a team at the event, and we have to try to keep those people focused and interested and staying on that team, and then potentially learning over time how to lead that team, and then ascend into event leadership and things like that. Right now, one of the problems that I see is that we recreate the wheel constantly. And that causes everybody to burn out, because people jump in and they recreate the wheel, and it takes a good 2 or 3 years for anything to become a standard way of doing things at an event. And so 2 or 3 years in, the people that have recreated the wheel are burned out, because they don't have enough people that are doing things the way that they're trying to do it. So they're having to drag everybody along with them, and it's a battle, and it gets really tiring. So one of the things that I really strongly suggest is that we're going to have to look at our event structure and figure out a way to have longevity with our volunteers, with our teams, and to encourage more people to get involved. I have some ideas about that. We don't need to go into all of that right now, but the biggest problem that I see is the complete lack of additional people who are willing to step into leadership roles. So we've got to figure that out, you guys, because we're running out of people. Nobody else wants to do this thing anymore, partially because they've seen the shit show and how ugly things have gotten, but partially because we just haven't cultivated any other people who have that drive. So that's something we got to work on.
So as a general overall thing, yes, absolutely. But I do also think that those are things that our organization has been working on really actively for the last 3 years. And we left the event last year with 2 shadow for event leads at different stages in training, and with multiple departments who had succession planning and people ready to train this year and step up and take their places. So we have been making progress there in a real way, and I don't think that any of those people are planning on coming back next year because they don't feel safe and secure in what they're doing. So those core things really need to be addressed before it doesn't, even if we are successful at the other parts, if we can't address that core part, it's not gonna matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to hear specifically, and this doesn't necessarily need to be at this meeting either, but it can be, because there's not a whole lot of people that are talking. I want to hear specifically more about what is making these people feel unsafe. You know, because I'm blunt, okay? I'm hearing a lot of therapy words, and oftentimes this person's therapy words are not going to match this person's therapy words, and I think we got to just sometimes kick that shit to the curb and get really, really real. I want to know what's making people feel unsafe. I want to know what is, you know, causing people to be so uncomfortable that they don't want to be involved anymore at all when they were in a position where they were ready to step into leadership, because that's a pretty big step backwards.
I think I know that there are people who I had like in training with Department 6. There are people that I had in training to step up and take over the Moth Keepers team who do not feel safe stepping up into those positions because of how the events committee members have been treated. Not just this year, but like this year it really blew up. It does come down to there not being checks and balances and people not feeling like they are going to be stood up for or protected by the people who they direct report to. And the board coming in and removing people in secret with zero communication has really turned a lot of people off.
So stood up for against who?
The board.
Okay, so is the main issue the conflict and the divide between the board and the people running the event?
I would say yes.
And I mean, I know I've personally seen, you know, some of the issues regarding y'all with regard to how the board mishandled dealing with their perceived issues or whatever. That definitely is something that has to change. I don't entirely understand why other people that haven't faced that exact situation are feeling so unsafe. Like, is it because they've perceived this by watching what's happened with y'all?
I believe so. Yes. So specifically, the person who is going to be stepping up and taking over Moth Keepers and like leading that team, their partners were included in the public doxing of like my personal life and my relationships. And like, while there are a lot of people who were like, wow, that was super fucked up, there's also the sense that like there also seems to be a lot of people who don't think that what happened like that was a problem. And like a lot of queer and polyamorous people are afraid of having their personal lives broadcasted publicly to the community because it puts their lives and families at risk.
So just to be clear, and I don't need names necessarily, but sort of an understanding. So the people that are doing the doxing and attacking, are those all board members, or are we talking community members or community members that are friends with board members?
It started with a board member, and there was another member of an advisory group who participated in that as well.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we definitely moving forward are going to have some way to address if there are people on the board who are currently like the top of our company, right? Yeah. That do things like this. There is currently no recourse whatsoever to address that. And so the community needs a way to be able to look at the board of directors, and if the board isn't doing what the company needs, like representing the corporation the way they need to, as in acting like grown-ass adults and not doxing people in our community, then that needs to be something the community has the means to address. Does that sound right?
I would love that. I am personally still being like bullied, harassed, and attacked on social media platforms by a former board member, and
Yeah.
our current organization has neglected to
So what Violet is saying is that they're still being attacked by a former board member, and that board member, ex-board member, is going to other organizations and attacking them there as well. Go ahead, Jen.
The person that I've been communicating with that's online, and I guess they can't still chat, was saying that a lot of people that have been in leadership are afraid to stay in leadership because they don't want to end up having to do all the work for that department.
That's
Because
valid.
they don't feel like they're getting the support that they need, and they're just being, there's too much being asked of them.
So I want to ask the community, what would it look like for you to feel like you had the appropriate amount of support in that role? And my secondary question is, what can you personally do about it? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Like, what would it feel like to you to feel like you're fully supported in a leadership role with this org?
So I personally do not really have any experience in the leadership structure, but I think the way that I see forward, just based on my experiences with other organizations, is we need to simplify things. We are building things on a rocky foundation, and I feel like looking at an outsider at leadership for the last 10 years, it seems like it's a constant game of just playing catch up and trying to get everything together for the next event. And I think there should be serious discussions about reducing the ticket cap and simplifying things, eliminating as many unnecessary departments. Some of these departments, here's a great example, and this might frustrate some people, but D6. I love what D6 is doing. I think it's very important that we have events throughout the year to try and foster community. But I don't think the org itself should be the person, hosting those events. I think D6 should be working, to facilitate theme camps and community members and stuff like that, putting stuff together. And that's just one example of simplification. Yep, and Violet is saying that D6 is doing that right now, which is awesome. And it's not really that I have a problem with the in-house events you are doing now, but it's just I think we need to be looking at every single possible avenue to try and bring this back to basics, and try and get. I think we honestly want a smaller leadership team, a smaller committed team with humbler goals than what we're doing right now, because I would prefer to build it back up to this size on a basis of stability, where the majority of people in leadership have several years of experience in that. Now, how we actually, take the steps to do that, the specific changes we make, I have no idea. I have not. Rebecca does. I haven't been involved closely enough to know that, but I don't know. And just speaking to a lot of people, I don't think I'm the only person with this. I think this is a pretty widespread belief that we need a reduction in, titled leadership roles and just overall scale of the burn.
So I do wanna comment on something that's kind of passed already. I am very new to the organization. And I was very hesitant to get into leadership. And I even stated before I took on my position of, is this even safe? Is this safe for me to jump in? I am under D6, and seeing how people had been targeted made me very hesitant to jump in, because who says I'm not next? Who says, whatever I do in the future, because I have been in this position, I'm not going to be targeted next? You're not going to get people to want to jump in and help out and volunteer if that's the assumption, that they're going to be targeted by association. At the same time, I also wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the events that D6 does throughout the year. When I say I'm new, I mean June new. But I'll jump in with 2 feet in the deep end. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing to some extent, but it doesn't matter what team it is, I'm willing to jump in and help. Because for me, it's about service, and it's about the community as a whole. My one question and kind of concern is, I don't know that there's any role that doesn't have training within the EC, but there's no training for the board. There's no sort of leadership training. There's no sort of... There is a job description. It's on the website. But I see that as an issue.
Those resources do exist. There are job descriptions. The board has a whole manual. In fact, they have 2 versions of a manual created by 2 different successful, former presidents. There is also an FAI financial officer's manual. I am fairly certain that those things have been in a folder unopened for a couple years.
Hello. So I'm Jenny, for those of you that don't know me. I have never been involved in upper leadership. I am a TCO, and I participate in artist fundraising and a lot of the activities and stuff. And I am very close friends with a lot of people from leadership and otherwise. So I will say, though, that one of the reasons I have never jumped up and joined a leadership role, though, is because I've seen how other people have been treated. I have seen people be publicly dragged, literally, on a call, on meetings that were open to 200 people. I've seen people be removed without warning, without talking to, without looking into actually what happened, just removed. And that's a life-ruining thing. People put a lot of their heart, their soul, their love, their blood, sweat, and tears into this, and it becomes a part of who they are. And so when it's removed without warning, regardless of the reason, it's shattering. And I've seen people lose faith. I've seen people become suicidal because of it. So it's a thing that we have to be very careful with in leadership. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't joined, because I'm a fragile person. And if I can't be fragile and be part of leadership, then, no way. I don't want to be broken the way I've seen people be broken. And so there's a better way to do things. Oh.
Hi guys, my name is Sunny. A whole lot of you know me because I've been in this community a long time. I've also been involved in a lot of other regionals and in Burning Man. And as someone who has been broken by leadership before and has been harassed by a board and have been targeted by another regional and had my entire life turned upside down in the most traumatic time of my life, I can say 100% that this can affect you deeply. I'm traumatized from the shit I went through in a position where I had absolutely nobody. When I tried to go to leadership about my harassment, they told me that it was not their drama. When I tried to do things the right way, same thing. And being that isolated in your lowest time is not something I would ever want anybody to go through. And having a check and balance system is absolutely necessary. There were people that joined this specific board intentionally to create a conduct committee so there was a check and balance because they watched this go on. And so if the community wants to deal and have a place where they can deal with these conflicts that comes from a non-biased place, I feel that those people will step up into the leadership they need to be. Like, even right now, I'm here, even though I'm nervous, because leadership makes me absolutely nervous now. You have good people out here wanting to be a leader, wanting to do these things, but they have already watched, because I've been here 14 years, and I have watched a whole lot of shit go on, and I remember most of it. So it doesn't make me want to jump into this any faster because of that. And, you know, we have an opportunity to grow. You know, this is alchemy. It's a combination of chemicals and explosions. I mean, we have the ability to create whatever we want out of it. And if we don't want this in our burn, then we have the ability to do something about it. But that takes everybody. And that takes not turning your back when someone comes, hey, this person makes me feel this way. This isn't fair. You don't need to turn your back on that, because we're all connected, and what affects one affects us all. It's a ripple effect. And just because it's not affecting you now doesn't mean it won't affect you later, or it won't affect the thing you love the most later, which you now are all witnessing happen. So if I could give you any advice from someone who experienced this firsthand and went through it for years, 7 years to be exact, I would recommend that we all step up and do something and stand up for everybody around you, because it's necessary and important, because we lose good people. I watched people leave that regional and never come back to this community because of how that woman treated them. So, yeah, I mean, it was horrible. And I mean, literally, when my kid's dad died, she targeted me. When my daddy died, she targeted me. Those are the two most traumatic places I'd ever been in my life. And to have someone come at you like that, I cannot to begin to explain to you the complicated trauma that it gave me, especially in trusting anybody and in trusting any leadership. So I agree that getting a non-bias, paying for somebody, like you suggested earlier, would be a good option, because then they have no connections to any of the cliques or any of the crap that has followed this stuff forever. You will have someone who has no bias deal and delegate those issues, but without a check and balance system, you're going to continue with this issue.
So I want to say something about the community as a whole. So something that this has been around since we started the thing, right? Our community can be vicious. So I don't know what to do about that, but that's something that we have got to find some way of getting away from as well, because I can tell you, as a former board member and as a former event lead, you know, you put so much effort and time and energy and love into this thing just to have, like, we have a policy generally that if you are, like, in leadership, you don't even read the Facebook group for at least 2 weeks following the burn, because people get so shitty, and, like, you feel like you've just put so much into it, and then, you know, certain people in the community will just come in and just drag every person that was involved and find every fault in the world, but it's people that have no interest in doing anything about it. I don't know how we start to shift the expectations of our community to not be shitty like that, but that's another reason that people avoid being in leadership, is because, you know, you're put under a microscope, and there has to be some way that we can, like, I don't know, as leadership even start standing up for each other and pushing back on the community and discouraging that kind of behavior as well.
Right here. My voice doesn't project at all, so let me use this microphone. I will say that the current comms department is working on some, like, more clear expectations of, like, community discourse within the Facebook space, and, like, that, like, there's a document that I have literally looked at and, like, put, like, comments and, like, edits and suggestions for, but, like, there is a movement within the department who, like, is basically the first line of, because that is the department who moderates that group. That is the there is a team within that department who sees all of the, like, moderating that group in 2020, holy shit. That was traumatic. But like there is a movement within that department and that team to have like clear expectations as to how we expect people to show up and conduct themselves within the community space, specifically when it comes to talking to other people and talking about other people. And I mean, they're getting it like as clear as like, here is our warning process, here is what's going to happen if you can't abide by XYZ. And so that is something that is being worked on. And we are losing a lot of very skilled and driven people because of how we've been treating them.
I would also like to propose that Alchemy adopts the 12th principle of accountability, because I believe that it should be a principle for Burning Man and all regionals, because it is not something that is adopted by a lot of humans, period.
We haven't even made it to 11 yet, Sonny. We haven't even made it to 11 yet.
Well, I mean, well, whatever.
I don't disagree with you, and we do need the 11th one as well.
How to request accountability, how to like be accountable when you make mistakes. Like we literally made an entire PowerPoint presentation, which I hadn't done since high school. And like if that is information that like people want, if those are things that people want to see and the community wants to see, like that is work that people have done that we can make broadly available, as well as I also made a PowerPoint presentation on burnout and what it looks like and the warning signs and how you can support like people, how to ask for help, all of those things. One of the teams within Department 6 is a leadership support team. That team is in place to help the people within leadership either do things that like they don't have the natural abilities or skills to do. So for me, it's computer stuff. Like I don't speak beep boop. And so, but like that team is also in place, like that team is ranger and sanctuary trained. They are there for de-escalation and to provide support within like leadership. And here's our current leadership support team lead.
So I want to interject there for 1 second. So I'm hearing that we have some stuff in place, and I'm hearing that some work is being done. What I'm not hearing is that that stuff is being communicated widely, because nobody else knows about this stuff. And if nobody else knows about it, then it may as well not exist. So we're going to have to find a way to apply this stuff more broadly so that people in the community who are scared to be in leadership know that there are resources and things that exist and things that are being worked on, because that might actually help people feel a little less concerned, right? So, you know, it's not all broken, but there are some communication issues, especially between the people that are currently in leadership and the rest of the community. I feel like there's a whole lot of disconnect there where the community at large has no idea what's going on.
I have it. I'm just sitting down.
No, you can go first.
I am more than willing to have conversations with people to facilitate any of that. I have asked pretty much every department lead where and how I can help. There's not much I can do as leadership support if it's not expressed how I can actually support you. Like, there's nothing I can do. But I am here and I am available. There are many that are burned out and have been burned out, likely for years. And that's not going to help with building up more volunteers. that's not going to help with wanting to put in extra energy to train and teach on how to take that department or that team over in the future. And I don't see that we can, I don't know how we can maintain the size that we are at least for next year, because we're not going to have volunteers to actually do the work. It needs to be much smaller at this point. From what I gathered, we've capped it at 2,500, which is insane to me. Then again, what do I know? But still, it feels insane. It feels overwhelming. It feels, looking at our numbers, it's insane. Looking at the number of departments we have and department leads and teams, and trying to get people on board to take teams that are important positions for safety reasons, for accessibility reasons, we cannot maintain. It is just not possible without destroying people.
I have to make an old school joke. Are you saying we need to staff critical infrastructure?
So yeah, that's this is H-Bomb now, for those of you that don't know me that are in the room. I've been safety lead for almost 10 years now. I've event led a couple of times in there, but I've predominantly been the safety lead. And what I can say, we're talking all about the problems that upper leadership has, how we're gonna get these event committee people, how we're gonna get the board people. Like, I personally can say for myself, it's not that I feel unsafe, I don't feel supported by the board, and in my role, that's critical. If I don't feel like the people above me have my back when I potentially go to jail for this burn, that's real. We don't have volunteers, y'all. Like, those of you that are TCOs that are out here that are listening, like, talk to your camps, talk to your people. We don't have, I think we're short about 6 team leads this year, something like that. We don't have 6 team leads. Yeah. Purchasing, LNT, tear down, moth keepers. We need one more for sanctuary, ideally, if we could find them. Yeah, we need a co-lead for SOS canteen. We need quite a few roles. And beyond that, we need volunteers, y'all. Like, I can tell you, this burn has survived on luck for years. We've had a total of maybe 2 ranger teams on burn night for a mile and some change long campus. How is that safe? How are we doing as a burn if we can't get critical roles staffed? What are we doing with 2,500 people? What are we doing with, 8, 9 department leads? Where are we supposed to get these people?
What the fuck is a moth keeper?
It's a new team. They basically scan the crowd. They walk a perimeter line and scan the crowd, looking for potential problems. They're out mingling before people get to perimeter.
Okay, so I can speak on what Moth Keepers is. It's a team that I brought from a regional out in the Pacific Northwest. It was created by a longtime Green Dot Ranger who goes by Cinemox, and it was a team created due to incidences in 2018 and 2019 at Element 11 and the Big Burn. Moth Keepers are a ranger and sanctuary trained team whose entire role is to identify and stop a perimeter breach before it is attempted.
Do we have perimeter fully staffed?
Nope.
Then we don't need to have that team unless we have our basic team staffed. I mean, those people are going to be doing double duty when we could just put them on perimeter. Like, we have to, pare this down until we get those, absolute baseline teams filled.
We're pulling people from places where we need other
Just as completely different, but going back on like communication, like to the community, outside of the newsletter, the social media pages, and the open community meetings, how else can we communicate with the community? We also have the website and the blog.
I just wanted to go back to, this is Emily, who I was involved in a lot of leadership a long time ago. I retired, I'm good with it. But I see a lot of what happens. And like, but like, the communication question has been a thing for many years. Like, I instituted the census to try to understand who is our community, how are they finding out about everything, like where are they seeing the information. But the point that I wanted to make, to go back to what we were talking about just before the communication issue, is that like, and again, having been out of like the event, like leadership side of things for quite a long time, I don't know to what extent, like, has there been like a really stark evaluation of, are all of these teams actually critical? And like, I understand like the difficulty there, because everyone wants to feel like their team and like their pet project is so utterly important, and in some ways like it absolutely is. But like, what if we had a more stark evaluation of like, what are the actual bare bones critical teams and services that are necessary for a burn to exist? Because I think as organizations and as people, things start to build, they start to complicate. There's support teams for other teams. There are, like, we've started to build bureaucracy into this thing that's supposed to be essentially a safe container for absolute anarchy. And like, how are we building higher and higher layers of bureaucracy into something that's supposed to be like, hey, we've established one little safe spot where you can absolutely do all the things that the 10 principles say you can, and like explore your imagination. Maybe we don't need a lot of the teams that do exist. Like, I think that there are ways to get, I don't know, bring in some outsiders as well, to just kind of be like, do we really need that? How could this be reformulated so that we are not overtaxing a bunch of people or looking for volunteers? Like, anyone who like wants to volunteer, they might take one of these less critical positions, when in fact like they could take that volunteer spirit and apply it towards like, this is the shit that we actually need.
Hey, I'm Patrick. I'm one of the event leads this year, and I was event lead last year and have been around leadership for a long time. One, I want to just say that volunteer signups are going to go out probably tonight, or if at worst tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. Two, I don't think anyone is necessarily going to disagree that there are non-essential teams right now, but I also want people to just like be aware that when you think about what non-essential teams might be, I think it's entirely like possible that a lot of people would be like, oh yeah, well, those things that I don't care about aren't necessary, but this thing that I do care about is definitely necessary. Having less teams means that we probably wouldn't have shuttles. We probably wouldn't have a big center camp. We probably wouldn't have art grants or theme camp grants. Like, these things, there wouldn't be Care Bears. There wouldn't be anywhere near as many like, and anywhere near as much community involvement. Like, yes, it is. I just want to make sure people like fully think through when they say we don't need as many people, we don't need as many leads, we don't need as many teams. Like, just think about the things that are most likely to get cut are probably going to be things that you really like too. That's all I wanted to put out there on that. And I also, going back a little bit further, wanted to kind of just name something that is more of a like systemic issue, not just in our community, but like in, we're not unique in this, but when when we started this event cycle back in like January, the event lead team was three experienced people. I knew Shadow, and then Samantha, who was going to be kind of a reference experienced person to help us out. And because of a lot of the things that happened between the EC and the board this year, Samantha was removed. One of our other event leads who was femme presenting was removed, and we ended up with kind of two white guys running the show. And I just wanted to name that misogyny for what it was. And I have absolutely played unwilling part in perpetuating that, but if we're gonna fix it, we need to name it. Sorry? Oh.
Hey, I think I have to restart the Teams meeting again, so I'm going to take 5 minutes and post it on the Facebook page, and we can get back to it.
Speaking on that, I think a lot of people have a misconception that Discord is private. Discord is not private. So anything you post on Discord is discoverable by the authorities. So regardless on if we open a Discord, the same kind of moderation would have to happen.
If you want security, get two people alone in a room and like far away from like, you know, Alaska or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we can do.
Pretty much, yeah.
We have to get a Faraday cage
Exactly.
and just put two people in it.
and it was just one of those things where there's no way to like shadow a board position. So in terms of like knowing if you're a fit for a role, it's hard if you have zero context for what you're going to be doing. So, is there? Yeah, I'm 100. Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm advocating for the idea that we should have a board shadow system in place such that people can get experience without being solely responsible for something that they don't know what they're getting themselves into. Fair. Yeah.
But would the board suck if you could stay on it long enough to figure out what you were doing and then cease doing it?
Pass this down.
They don't? Oh my god. Okay.
There are currently no term limits for the board.
Okay. We're
absolutely 100% not operating in accordance with the bylaws. I can tell you that for sure because I just went through every word of them last night. So anytime that there is a bylaws change, it is required that the board send that update to the entire community. That has not been happening, and so I have no idea what the current bylaws are. I went off the ones that I found online. They should always be posted online, so any person in the community can see exactly what the board's behavior is supposed to be based on legally. So if that's not the current set of bylaws, then that's a huge problem that needs to be addressed. But we also, if we're going to have bylaws, which we are legally required to have, we need to act in accordance with them. I mean, if we don't, you guys, then there's no point in having a corporation because we do a thing called breaching the corporate veil, which means if we're not acting in accordance with what Georgia law has told us we have to have this type of organization, then that wall does not exist to protect anybody involved. And that's the whole point, right? So that has to get changed. And I'm very willing to sit with the board and talk with them about legalities to make sure that that part doesn't get screwed up because it's so important for everybody that's involved. Anyway, end lawyer rent.
I'll just kneel. So, as far as like subject matter experts working in roles that fit them, it's kind of difficult because in my professional life, I work for a healthcare organization and I review and manage grievances against the healthcare organization. I could do a conduct committee. I could be a lead on a conduct committee. I know how to do that. That's not something I want to do in relation with Alchemy. And there's not a way for us to, like, with no conduct committee currently existing, there's not a way for me to, like, provide insight without putting myself out there as wanting to do that. So I think there has to be, like, some kind of, like, a brain trust so people can provide their expertise without kind of hooking themselves into doing something they don't want to do with Alchemy or with any other org.
So I want to comment on that. I know that, like, the thing that I posted, everybody thought it was too long to go and read, so I'm going to give you a summary. My idea moving forward, and again, I have no power, my idea moving forward is to basically work with the community and figure out what everybody thinks the issues are, and then sort of create little brain trusts in order for people who don't necessarily want to be in leadership or to be, you know, the like public-facing people involved, but they still get to sit around and come up with ideas about how to make things better, right? And so my thought was, you know, basically just have like pods of people that address certain things. You know, pods of people that are addressing like corporate governance, and pods of people that are addressing consent issues, and pods of people, so that everybody can sit around and come up with what the community thinks are better ways to do things, and set deadlines, and have people come together for meetings and share what they've come up with to help us find a better way forward for, the key issues that we're coming up with here. Communication issues. Have a pod of people that can present. Here's ways that we would propose to resolve some of these communication issues. Here's what these things might cost. Here's what, we would need as far as volunteers or from the community, And I think that that's a great way for people who want to give that kind of input to be able to do that without having to like fully join event leadership.
Real quick, I have one thing, well, actually two things that I want to say, because I know we're going to wrap up here pretty soon, but I want to make sure that both of these things get said before we wrap up. Number one, the current leadership team and, everything, especially my friends here in the back row, I just wanted to say that thank you guys for all the work that you're doing this year on the burn. I know things have been rough. I know we are understaffed, we are under-volunteered, we are overworked. We are not paid, and I'm saying we, but really it's you guys. And so I just wanted to acknowledge, I know things suck, but thank you for sticking in there and letting us do the thing at least one more time, and doing everything that you're doing. Your hard work is seen and acknowledged and loved, and thank you for everything that you're doing. So. One more thank you. I do want to say thank you to Rebecca for putting all of this together. You're amazing, and we love you, and thank you for helping us try to save the thing. Most of us read your whole thing.
Just real fast, because I know we're wrapping up, but I personally want to hang out and talk with you guys a little more. Can I just get a show of hands if I went and got pizza, who would want to eat it? I'm just trying to figure out how much to order. Three of them. That's not that many of you. Please don't be shy. Yeah, I can do vegetarian. I don't think there's any vegan options. So, okay. I'm gonna go get. All right. Thank you.
I kind of have a couple questions, and I think you guys might be able to answer some of this for me. If someone is not doing their job in leadership, what happens?
What level of leadership?
Anything under the board.
Yeah, nothing really effectively. We do have a newly instated 3 strikes situation where we're going to try. We do have a new 3 strikes program that we're working on that would basically give people a warning, similar to a corporate structure, unfortunately, because there's just some things that we have to do that way. And you would get a talking to, and then there would be written intervention, and then, a meeting would follow that, and then termination from your position. But we do try to give people every chance in the world to, not fuck up.
Samantha, that was my next question is.
The board's a separate committee, they would have to adopt that.
So if the board can remove others in leadership, why can't that go both ways? If someone in the board is not doing their damn job, like, I don't know, paying taxes, why?
Because of the law.
What was that?
Because of the law. I mean, you can't just have people that are not at the board level, just remove somebody at the board level legally. That's not to say that we couldn't come up with a way. I don't know what that way would be. I'm happy to think through that, and I do think that we have to have some way of addressing if a board is the whole board or part of, ideally if it's one person on the board would deal with it themselves internally.
If they deal with
if
it.
If it is the entire board, which we have literally never had happen in the entire existence of this, if the entire board needs to be addressed, then I don't know the answer to that, because legally there's no redress currently.
And I also do want to say that my position is one that is not necessarily essential, but it is at this point because of burnout and because of our size. It just is what it is. And because we have so many in leadership that are burnt out and so many that are leaving after this year, we cannot be the size that we are if we can even happen next year. If we need to take a year off like other organizations have done to restructure, to get ourselves set up so that we can actually be successful and this can continue for years to come.
Something that has kind of always bothered me, or I've just never understood, I know that like there are burn leadership like conferences that happen regionally and they happen nationally, and we have always sent people to these conferences, and yet somehow our org continues to struggle with things that other orgs don't seem to have a problem with. Because it seems to me like, because I really like Rebecca's idea of like, can we get enough people from the community together in pods to try to like identify what are the problems and what are the ideas we can generate. So I'm like, shouldn't there be kind of like a survey or like an information, like a fact gathering group that goes to other orgs and says, tell us about your bylaws, tell us about your structure, tell us about your leadership pipeline, like where are the things that we've been falling down that we can learn from our peers? These are our peers. And like, what have the conferences been for if not for that? Because we've clearly fallen down on something if we've been fielding people to leadership conferences for years and yet we can't adopt systems and practices that work from people that are like doing well where we've got big points of struggle.
So we still send, I don't know about this year, but we've actually in the past couple years ramped up how often we're trying to send people to those types of things. One, to get that community perspective and to hear what other events are doing. And then two, also because when you volunteer at like from the department lead level up, right, when you are volunteering, this is a part-time job and people should be able to get a benefit in exchange for that, whether it's fulfillment or like development of skills and things that they can use in the real world and in their professional lives. And so we not only have been going to all of like the regular just kind of like conferences, but like very specifically we've been making sure that like our safety people are getting to the safety conferences every year, that kind of stuff. And like one thing that like am like always like, so one of those things that just like really hits home when you get in a room with like all of the regional leaders is actually that none of us are that special. Everyone has the same problems. At the last national conference, there was a literal whole session dedicated to navigating poly relationships within leadership, and everybody got in the room and sat around and looked at each other and said, we were hoping you were gonna have ideas. So like, this is like a community-wide, like all of this is community-wide stuff, and we can and should lean on each other more than like we do. And like as part of that, I have been talking with, I don't know if any of y'all know our comms lead, Emily. Emily was a former Lakes of Fire board member, and she's just like super awesome. And we are working on coordinating a like group of burners who put together resources for leadership that are not tied to any specific event. They don't come from, you know, it's anyone, any event that wants to participate will be able to share their resources, and they will be publicly available for other leadership teams to go to and lean on and to pull ideas from. People will be able to like reach out to this organization, but there is no like real depository that hosts these types of resources for people, right? Not even like Burning Man doesn't provide anything. They literally provide nothing. And like I've had discussions with our previous regional contacts and the people who like run the regional network. They have no interest in providing that stuff for the events. And they are interested in regionals forming their own groups and sharing those things amongst themselves. So like if that's something that you would be interested in being a part of, like hit me up. We definitely want people involved, and it is really just meant to be like an open source, again, like not reinventing the wheel, being able to lean on each other. Also, as a side note, one of the really cool, one of the conduct sessions we went to last year, I think it's Pacific Northwest, has, they call it the RAC Committee, Radical Accountability Committee, and I really love that name, and like I like the intention behind it, and they said that they would be down if we stole it. So that's a thing that exists in the world. But like, ultimately, when we look at like our structure, right? Like we're talking about how things have to change and how we want to change for like next year, but I'm also wondering what we think can happen to facilitate some type of repair between the organization and the trust that has been broken within the community and within the people who want to step up for leadership, because realistically, like if we wait until next year, like are people still going to feel driven? Are they going to feel motivated? Are they going to want to be a part of that? I think that like what happens next year is important, but like there is still time and space between now and the event, and to allow that space to fill up with all of the hard feelings that we've heard today, I think would be doing a disservice to everyone who has worked hard on this team and to the community itself. And I don't know what that looks like, but I do know that like the community has watched our team tear each other apart limb for limb this year. And if that is what they go into the event feeling like leadership is, they're not going to come out of it feeling great and wanting to revamp things and make it work for next year.
So for what it's worth, I've approached the board to try to act as like a project manager to try to go ahead and get these little pod things set up and get people working on doing improvement stuff. I can't force the board to make any decisions to move anything forward. I wish that I could. I would have this rolling already. I've had some conversations and have been told that it will be considered, but, you know, right now they don't even have a way to have quorum. So, I mean, we've got 2 board members who are completely, like, off comm until October, which is frankly fucking ridiculous. You know, you've got 6 total people and 2 of them are completely out of touch 100%. And you've got one that is threatening to just be like off the board. I mean, you're basically leaving the entire board in the hands of one elected person in your event lead team. It's just, it's not a good situation. I am very willing to get started on like coming up with what needs to be addressed and coming up with people to start looking into stuff to get, because I mean, I've had a ton of interest in people who are willing to do almost anything to work toward making things better for everybody. There's a lot of the community, a lot of the community that hasn't been tapped for this because a lot of people don't have any idea how they can get involved. And so I'm willing to try to be that conduit to help people find where they could possibly get involved in researching and making things better. But I can't do that unless the board agrees to allow me or whoever else wants to do it. I don't care, but somebody needs to do it, but nobody can do it until the board like allows it to happen.
So, earlier there was like, you know, what happens if the, you know, board, like if everybody quits or isn't sitting in their seats, like, because right now what's happening is there are people in the seats, but they're not working. And like, I think that one of the solutions was to like go to the state level and be like, I don't know the right words, but like, can we just do that now?
Nope.
Ugh.
We cannot do that unless the board is fully dissolved, and we really do not want that to happen, you guys. A lot of other shit will kind of, especially with an event pending, we really, really don't want to have to do it at that level for so many reasons. We really need the board to at least choose some new people. That's really all we need. We can get them to at least choose some new people so that those people are active and ready to work and can make some decisions. But the way that this thing is organized right now, there's no recourse. We can't force the board to do anything.
So back to the hiring people. Maybe we just hire the board and pay them, and then if they don't do their job, we can fire them. And also they're paid, so they have to do their job.
Yeah, who's going to oversee that?
The event committee would.
The board chooses the event team.
Well, that's what we would hire them instead of it being just voted on and chosen. We would actually hire somebody, pay somebody to do the job.
I have a lot of feelings about paying people to do the job. I am not ready to back that. You guys can discuss it if you want to. I think that that comes with some potential issues. I also am an old school burner. I don't think anybody should be getting paid for shit, and I don't think anybody should be getting free tickets. But I know that you guys
we were just talking
you
about
disagree
paying
with
somebody
that.
to do counseling and stuff, right?
So what I do think is absolutely necessary for the board going forward is we've got to scrap these elections, you guys. We have to have people who have at least some background in business or finance or something that... Exactly. And I think that like we can have a couple of board positions that are elected by the community, but the main people have got to be professional level people who at least know how to read the damn bylaws.
Yes, we totally can. And also, I just kind of like want everyone to remember that like the principles were like designed to be things that evolved over time and could be thought about differently. And I recognize, especially for some reason in the Southeast like regional culture, we hold a lot to this idea of decommodification and what that means. And there is a really important part of that to our culture. But when we think about things like we shouldn't pay anyone to do a volunteer role, all you are doing is excluding and creating barriers for people who cannot afford to take time off from work to do this thing. And those people still have valuable skills and input that they could be giving. And if we want to have a long-term, truly diverse event and culture of leadership, those are the things and thought processes that we have to start dismantling. Where is the line between decommodification and evening the playing field so that everyone who cares about this community can be a part of doing the thing?
Who is having to take off work to do any of these leadership roles? Are you taking off more work than you would have just to attend the event?
Absolutely.
Why?
It's necessary for things to happen.
I can tell you I've run numerous of these events and I've never had to take off work to, so like that's something we would need to address. Like why in the world is it taking that much of your time? But he's not exclusively building. So
everything in general.
No, I think just like
I mean, we can even address why the fuck is build 2 weeks? That's ridiculous.
But
I mean, I
like,
feel like this is all stuff that we can address in ways that doesn't necessarily include, fuck it, let's pay somebody. I mean, it should not be requiring you to take off a ton of work. Like, that's ridiculous.
but it is, so what do we do, right? Like, realistically, you what?
The answer is we make it not. Like, we need to look at why that happened, because I cannot for the life of me understand why that would ever be something that would be happening.
I think too, it's not
And I
necessarily
ran
about
the
like
biggest Alchemy that has
taking
ever existed. So.
PTO, but like the ability to be done work at 5:30 or 5 o'clock every day, and to know that you can walk away at that time and commit to a 6 o'clock meeting is a fucking privilege. Not everybody has that, and we just have to think about those kinds of things and include them. But like also, I feel like most importantly, right, when we like look back historically, I don't know a single event lead from 2015 forward who has not separated from this organization in a way that is genuinely traumatic and harmful for them. And I have seen so many people. I can tell you that before the current round of our Facebook moderation team, our last 2 Facebook moderation leads ended up in therapy specifically to deal with the trauma that they were exposed to as having to navigate that page. I can tell you that myself and at least 4 former event or board level people have like genuinely thought about ending their own life over the way that they were treated, and 2 of those people actually attempted. Those things are not made public and people don't talk about them, but the truth of the matter is that like if we cannot do this thing without harming people, it is not worth doing. Like fucking period. And if we want to be able to do it in a different way, people do have to step up. The community has to step up and there has to be more involvement, and those checks and balances absolutely have to happen. Nobody who has put the time and energy into this event that is required to be a team lead or up deserves to be told to fuck off with no conversation and no excuse. And like, no, the truth of the matter is that this is a very personal thing, and like if people don't want to work with someone because they don't like them as a person and they don't think that like they would vibe, then they need to be brave enough to fucking say that, because it is a valid choice to make in some situations. And if like you are going to make these choices, you need to be able to back them. You can't just make choices and then run away and hide while everything falls apart. And we should not allow that. We should not accept that from the people that we have put in charge of this community and this organization.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of put on your big kid panties that needs to be happening with this as well. Like, some people need to just grow the fuck up and learn how to communicate with each other as grown-ass adults. There's no excuse for somebody telling somebody in leadership to fuck off. I mean, sure, except that, I mean, if you really are just incapable of working with other human beings, then don't ever apply for leadership. Like, that's just, it's crazy. That's crazy.
Sorry, this goes back to a slightly earlier point, but looking at the bylaws, it seems like directors can be removed for failure to attend board meetings. Sorry, looking at the bylaws, it looks like directors can be moved for failing to attend board meetings. So if you have people who've gone off comms, why can't they be removed for not attending the meetings? So you have a problem with it, right. So you have basically an entire board that's not doing their job, but they're perfectly content to not do their job.
And they did at the meetings, they're missing like 1 meeting, so at the end of the day.
Right, which is not an excuse, absolutely.
Exactly.
And to your point, if the board is going to have that level of interaction, you need to take the microphone. To your point, if the board is going to have this level of interaction that it really should be having currently, like with the current setup, then yeah, it shouldn't be based on, are you only missing meetings? They should be on call all the time, right? And so if they're not able to be present and able to do their jobs, then there needs to be recourse for somebody who's just absentee. We have to have people that are going to be like there and responsive when they're needed. You know, that's the whole point of their jobs. You know, but right now, unfortunately, the way that the law is written and the way that the bylaws are written, I mean, we can't just kick people off ourselves.
So then, do you have any other option other than to dissolve the corporation and form a new one?
Yeah, they're not going to be gone forever. They're only going to be gone for a month. And so there are people that are, you know, willing to interact in things as soon as they come back. But it's dumb to have to wait a whole month, you know, because they're off comms.
Okay, so I'm sorry, that's the part I missed, was that this is a temporary situation.
Yeah, it's temporary, and there are ways around it, but it will require the board, like, getting enough people that are willing to participate in a vote. If we can get 4 of them to actively do that, then they can choose some new people to appoint, and then those people can make some things happen. But we can't force that.
Well, and also I think it's important to note that everyone who's on the board right now has been on the board for quite some time, right? Either they are remaining because they haven't resigned yet, or they've been on for a couple months. And so at any point, the current board could have voted and taken action and worked on these things. And if they were going to do that, it feels to me like they would have. And so the answer is that is not happening because the board does not care about these things or fixing these things. And until they take action to show us otherwise, that is the answer.
And also, like, there's a lot of us that we are working really hard to make this event happen this year, and like that's all I have the energy for right now.
And I think that's a legitimate choice, and what you probably should be primarily focused on right now. But
Hey everybody, this is Amanda, the remaining board member who wants to be here. I'm at work. I have just listened. I'm hearing everything. Everybody has made valid points. I appreciate all of you for being here. I wish I could make more of me be there to vote on a lot of these things that do need to be voted on. I was not a voting member when a lot of the really shitty decisions were made about how to just communicate, which is what should have happened and didn't happen with people. And it breaks my heart. I am staying to try to help to work through this. We've got a few people that have applied and are wanting to be on the board, and they're currently being vetted from what I've been told. I believe in alchemy. I think all of the points that everyone has made is completely valid. I think these things can be fixed. I unfortunately have to, I can't stay any longer in the meeting because I am at work. I've snuck off to say this. I just wanted to tell you all that I appreciate you for being here. I appreciate these town halls. Rebecca, thank you for still believing in alchemy enough to stand up and be a voice. Yeah, just please, everyone keep believing, and I look forward to whoever the new board members are going to be, and I live in the hopes that we can change all of these things because they are fixable and changeable things if everyone's willing to do that. And I'm just here to make sure there's a smooth transition so that, you know, maybe I can explain to the new board things that did not work, communications that have to be open, you know, things like that. So I just wanted to pop my voice in here and tell you all thank you, and to reassure all of you that I am here and I have been listening completely the entire time. And I hear you and I see you, and all I can say is that I live in hopes the new board will do better for everyone. And that's all I had to say.
Thank you. I just want to say that just remember that alchemy is like an ecosystem. If the ecosystem does not work within itself and work together, then the ecosystem collapses. We all have to think in those terms. Like, we all have to work together. We are a complete and utter huge team that of like microbes in your body. They all work together. They keep you a human, you know? They only work if they work together. If one of those things goes out of line, the whole system goes out of line. And so, even though you might not get along with someone, we all have to learn how to work together.
I was asked what are next steps, and my response is fuck if I know.
All right, so not everybody can be an artist, but everybody's a fucking critic, am I right? 16,000, Marcel Duchamp, 16,000 people on the Facebook group. That's 16,000 critics, like, judging y'all's hard work, all right? A couple things. It seems like, first of all, I'm new to leadership, joined the sound team. I think Tom's been great. I think Ali's been great. a lot of times when I think that there is a problem in the org, I come to something like this and find out that there's already a Google Drive of that problem, or there's already been a PowerPoint made or something like that. Or I find that sometimes the problem is somebody's getting doxxed, or somebody's getting shit dragged online, or somebody's getting harassed or something. These are serious problems, and if I come here, I do corporate event production every day. So like later this week I'm running audio for pharmaceutical companies and building LED walls and shit like that. I understand how hard it is to do a thing and make sure everybody goes home with the same number of fingers and toes, okay? And without getting traumatized from being sexually assaulted and things like that. It seems that the thing that needs to be done is a complete reorganization and at least internal audit with respect to outside organizations that are successful. That's gonna take time. People like consultants are paid, like McKinsey people make big PowerPoint slides that feed their families because they do this, all right? But like, if someone like me tries to do that, that is a huge ordeal because I'm commuting an hour and a half into Atlanta every day. I'm, doing 40 hours plus. I gotta do my own laundry and such. So there's a lot of, I agree, I've worked with a lot of nonviolent, social demonstration groups that have bottom-up direct democracy. It's always draining. It is so draining. Get consensus for 200 hippies in the woods. That is so exhausting. So, and it is a huge ordeal. It is a huge pain in the ass. Like all of this. Like even if we just had 3 people that were paid a living wage, and they would probably be stressed out because they got to be a crisis counselor for self-harm. They got to be a relationship counselor because somebody's boo is doing this. So what? I mean, there's a lot to deal with. So we need the audit. We need to look at ourselves and this organization and how other organizations are structured, and we need to create scalability. If we want a burn that works, or if we want a new burn that's smaller so that we have less drama, great ideas. But if we can get that Google Drive document, get interviews with people. It might take a 10-minute Microsoft Forms survey. It might take a 6-year life journey. Who knows? But it's going to be an ordeal, and we need to do it, and it needs to be organized. But all these things are going to take time, and they're going to take people willing to do that in the current day when milk is fucking almost $7 a gallon. I mean, am I right? So this is my experience as a new person. I have a lot of respect for y'all. I've done the event too, okay, so I know how hard it is. But it's like if we're gonna reorganize, we just gotta do that. We gotta figure out what we need. We gotta figure out what we can clean from the bones of the carcass of alchemy. Because just like you said, we're all this ecosystem. Ecosystems don't, evolution changes because things evolve because they have to, right? Okay. My bachelor's is in sociology, all right? Or these ecosystems, they get to a carrying point. They reach their carrying capacity, and then they collapse spectacularly. All right, so if we can control that collapse and form something good out of the ashes of alchemy, I mean, that's the whole point, it's transformation. It's an internal metaphor for the lead to gold thing. It's a metaphor for internal, self-discovery and all that. Anyways, we're gonna discover something about ourselves when we look at this organization and try to continue it, so that's all I gotta say, thanks.
Anybody? Sure. Hey, just to be really clear, I am willing to project manage this. I don't necessarily want to be on the board, but I'm willing to be a person who takes point on trying to figure out what's going on and then working with the community to make these pods. I'm willing to be that person. If no one else is willing to do it, I have the energy to do this because, I mean, this is at the end of the day my child, and I'm not willing to give up on it yet, and I don't think we need to scrap it completely. I think that there are ways forward. But I also think that it's going to take time. This is going to be at least a 3-year project. It's not going to be instantaneously fixed for next year. It's going to take time, and there's going to be stumbles. But I think that, even getting things moving in a more positive direction so that everybody sees that that's what's happening will be a fantastic first step. But we got to take that first step. All right. Anybody else have anything else to say? Is anybody monitoring online?
There's 10 people in there, but it's recorded. I'm going to post it.
All right. Okay, well, this will not be the only one of these that I'm planning on doing one at Alchemy itself to try to get more people because I want to hear from as many people in the community as we possibly can. I mean, I think that the most important thing right now is to get more people involved. But like everybody has said, unless we can show them that it is a safe space for them to be involved in, then we can't convince more people to jump into this. I don't want to see other people hurt either. I have been one of those people that's been hurt as well. And I don't want that to be what continues to happen. So, you know, but we need to be able to reach out to more of the community and try to communicate to them, this is what's happening and this is what we need to, you know, potentially move past this. And one of the biggest things we need is more participation. And not just have people, I love everybody that shows up at the event deeply, right? And I don't want to diminish the importance of our theme camps and our artists and things like that. But we also have to make the thing run. And the only way we can do that is by building a leadership pipeline. And to do that, we need people. So, anyway.
Yeah. Also, just, you know, before the event, if people would be interested, and I'd be happy, I did a live viewing of one of the board of directors meetings here. And if people, I'd be happy to do that again for the meeting this month and going forward, but only if people are interested in it. Is that just hosting something else here for the board of directors meeting later this month in like 2 weeks? Is that something people have any interest in coming to? Yeah, it's hard on a Thursday. Well, okay, well, I'll probably post something about it online. I think the first one I did, it was maybe like 8 or 9 people. And it's just, that's a lot of hassle for me if there's not much community interest. But I think it's really important that people come together on an ongoing basis and like have these conversations, because the communication needs to happen. And it's been happening over Facebook, which encourages problematic tendencies, to say the least. And I'd much rather be having those conversations with you guys in person and like seeing that community as humans. Does anyone want to organize that? I'll give you the spot, but I don't want to do the bookkeeping.
I mean, I'm organizing town halls actively, so.
Okay, so just let me know.
I mean, I don't have to be the only person doing them, but like, I'm already sort of on this path. You know, I promised the community I was going to host at least 3, so.
Okay.
I will be doing that. All right, thank you everybody for coming out and for taking the time to speak up and for caring. You know, I know that these are hard conversations, and I know that a lot of people have been hurt, and so I deeply appreciate people speaking up and being willing to share what they've been through and being willing to come here and listen to potential ideas for ways forward. I know that's hard. So thank you everybody for being here. Appreciate it.
Also, bad news, pizza is not happening. The pizza man is at church.